Hello, me lovelies. Well, got Cookie here, and Bobby's in the chat. The link's not working. I've just put the link through Bobby on the chat. So if you want to try that to get on, try it. Because so it happens sometimes that know when you send a link through for some reason with it on Instagram, and that's the only way I can get in touch with
So
Bobby
it
is on
happens
Instagram.
sometimes that. Sorry,
You did it, didn't you? But yeah,
sorry.
sometimes I say it's asking him for his email address and phone numbers. Lol, don't have any of them. Now that happened to Motorsports Bookies. He said, and Motorsports had a terrible time getting on. Well, he didn't get on. Actually, he couldn't. So I don't know what system they're trying to get through on. I haven't got a clue, but we'll wait and see. But unless he's on a different, I don't know, was he on a computer or something before and it doesn't work as well on a phone or whatever? I don't know. But we'll just wait because he's struggling to get on by the looks of it. But I remember this happened to Motorsports Bookies, and I thought Motorsports Bookies was just no messing about because everyone else had got on. But looks like Bobby's saying exactly the same thing as happening to him that happened to Motorsports Bookies. He was asking him for all kinds of information before he got on. But if you're there, Bobby, just click the link in the live. That's all you can do. If that doesn't work, I don't know what you can do. And I'm not getting any feedback from. So anyway, until Bobby works it out, because nothing I can do on this end to make it work any better. So, how's it been going with you, Cookie?
Yeah, all right. All right. I've been doing a few tasks around the house and that I've been neglecting. So, trying to put in a fireplace and stuff and that. It's a bit hard work, so I've never done it before, and I've got to do it properly. So,
Yeah. Is there a wood burner you want in multi-fuel?
multi-fuel burner I want in for the
See,
winter.
we can't. We can if we have wood burners, we have to have them, smoke free, and we can't have coal or anything like that in ours. It's one of those areas, that they say. But we've got lovely big, huge fireplaces because in the old days, of course, they had the coal fires and everything, and the big open fireplaces. And it's a shame that, but again, as I always found, Cookie, with those fireplaces, it's all going up the chimney. That's the way it goes. But apparently, in the old days, it used to be great because they had boilers behind them, and they used to heat up the water. So you'd light your fire, that would heat up your water.
All right, but it created smog. There was a lot of smog, wasn't it?
Yeah,
In the
yeah,
city with the burning and the coal. And our Churchill used to have a crisis in the cold weather. There
yeah.
was, aye. But
So that's it. But it's lovely. It's relaxing, isn't it? When you have until you get to clean it out. That's not the night.
aye. Well, I fancy trying to make a bit of charcoal. So if I can start making my own charcoal, because that burns slower than wood.
Oh yeah.
So I'm gonna try making that. See how successful I can be with that. See if I can save a bit of money.
Oh, here's Bobby. Oh yeah, Bobby, you finally got through. Great stuff. Mrs. Magpie, could I ask you a quick favour? Because when I go to do it, it only lets know where to put the link up. It says put in user in timeout or block user. I'm not going to block myself or put myself in timeout. Can you delete it for me where to put the link above? So no one clicks on it by accident thinking it's an open live, which it isn't. Yet, so yet my neighbour's got an outdoor one, actually got an indoor one and an outdoor one. But the outdoor one, I didn't know just how you have to be careful what wood you burn because sometimes it smells like kippers. And it's like, what, the whole might get the smell, everyone gets smell, and it smells like kippers, but you have to be careful what actually would you burn, don't you? Because you get different smells all the time. So how are you keeping, Bobby?
Yes, I'm fine, man. Thank you, darling. What about yourself? Nice to meet you, Cookie, mate. Nice
Is
to
this
meet
the
you.
first time you've ever met?
First time we've ever met. People have been saying in my comment section that shouldn't be doing it. I lost credibility in that, but listen, I'm a changed person. Who am I to judge? I've got an uncle doing life now in my local jail for killing his wife. Everybody knows that. It's no secret. He's recalled. So listen, I've been in my local jails. I've been in with my uncle. He's got a bit of reputation. He's a life, but at the end of the day, he made that mistake back in 1987, and he's still in. So I know how it works. Cookie be the lifers and that, mate. I'm called after, I'm called after him. His name's Robert Kyle as well, so is mine, and his dad was called the same. So it's in my family, mate. And I've heard bits and pieces, and I went, listen, I'll judge him on face value. I'm not in any camp, so I'll make it clear I'm not.
Thanks, Bobby.
For him, her, and I'll tell you, I'm just on my own mission, mate. Like yourself, I'm not wanting involved in any of the beef, mate. So nice to meet you, brother. Because take me at face value, mate.
Well, I've said this.
Thanks, mate. It is nice to meet you. And I think we'll get along good.
Yeah.
Well, mate, definitely, mate. Yeah, so watched a few your things on your channel just to get a wee insight. And yeah, mate, you're down to earth, man. You're just like one of the boys on the land in the jail, mate. The exercise yard, mate, doing laps and just that's the way, you know the way it rolls, mate. It's crazy.
Well, I'll just say this again, and I've said this in the past. The Buddha, when he was a man, and I think this is an amazing, inspirational story. A man used to call him a fraud. He was a fake. He wasn't telling the truth. He was misleading people and all this. And then at some point, this man suddenly became a believer. Something that the Buddha said reached into him, and he thought, no, this man's genuine. He's not a fake. Mm-hmm. So he went up to the Buddha and he said, I'm so sorry. Forgive me for what I did. I slandered you and all this. And the Buddha just sat there and kept on looking at him as if he didn't know. And so this was winding this man up. And he was saying, why don't you recognize me? It was only a few days ago. You must recognize me. And it was very rude to you and very insulting to you. You must know. And so the Buddha said, I don't recognize that. He said, I don't recognize that. I've never met that person before, never. And so it kept on going on like this. Then the Buddha turned around and said, no, he said, the person I'm talking to now is not the person that said that all to me in the other day. In other words, he was saying he will accept someone as they are at that present moment. Because if we condemn everyone for their past, and I used to say this in the police all the time when they'd be treating drug users signing on bail as scum, which they did. Mm-hmm. I used to say, do you know what? I said, treat a person like scum, treat them like they're worthless, and guess what? They'll believe they're worthless. And I said, do you think they're going to try and get off the drugs? I said, no, they are not. And that's the truth. You treat everyone as you see them at that moment. And someone can't be punished and punished and punished. And actually, I think you'll agree with this, Cookie, won't you? The biggest punishment you can get is from your own mind.
Oh, it is.
When it suddenly sinks in, what have I done? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's just like you get punished by your sins, not for them. That's an old saying as well. But why I wanted the two of you together, Bobby, is because I see in the two of you this important message that changing, saying the past is the past, changing it. Now, what you said there was important, and I've seen your videos where you're saying about people saying, oh, don't talk to Cookie and all this, that, and the other. And you said, no, I will, because guess what? That's what life's about. You've got to also understand there's warning fractions on YouTube. And they don't see it from the wider perspective. They're either for or against something. But when you're talking about people moving on and learning how to break what is a vicious cycle or escape from a culture or where you live, where you're in the wrong position, in the wrong place, and you want to get away, the message is more important than any war and fractions. Oh, I don't like them, don't talk to them, and all this business. It's rubbish. So that's why I brought you together. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to more or less stay quiet. And that's why I've got me Avi on, because I've worked out, just to let people know why I'm on Avi and not my face. My camera was driving me mad because I kept on going at the wrong angle. So I put my Avi on. And what I've realised is, if I've got guests on talking about something that they're experts on by having lived it, where I'm not the expert, I prefer to have them on screen talking about it. And I just come in now and again, where if it was just me and Bobby or just me and Cookie, then I'd be on screen, because it would be a bit of an insult to not have my face on screen. But anyway, what I want to do is I want you, Cookie, to start talking, because you've mentioned this before, talking about with Bobby, and Bobby, jump in whenever you want, about how, and it is this where it is different. Your background is different from Bobby's, because I think, Bobby, you had a much rawer deal starting off in life, a hell of a much rawer deal. But just talk about how you, Cookie, came to the realization you had to break away from your past, and you jump in, Bobby, and add to it when you want to.
Okay, yeah.
I think it was when I committed my index offence that I got my life sentence for. That's the sudden horror, and realisation of what I had done, committing that kind of violence, and it felt disgusting and wrong. But however, I was still criminalised. I was still thinking like a criminal, still talking like a criminal. Everything about this, I'd steal anything. I still had the morals, but I didn't want them. And you kind of just rip them out of you. You can, I suppose, if you get some sort of like spiritual experience where you get all that understanding. But I had a really low IQ. I got a low IQ. My emotional intelligence was really, really low. You know, I was still a child, really. In my head, I was still a 12-year-old. So, and I didn't understand what was happening. You know, I had all these feelings. I didn't want them part of us anymore. All this belief system, because I had done something really bad. But it took a long time, and that's when my journey started. And I went to Wormwood Scrubs, you know, managed to calm things down a bit, start rationalising things a bit better. However, I still wasn't dealing with my criminal beliefs and stuff and that. Even though I was trying to, I still didn't understand why I had become a criminal, why I was carried on thinking like a criminal and everything, you know. It wasn't until, and then I went to Parkhurst after that, done a couple of years in Parkhurst, and then I went to Grendon, and that's when my journey started for me.
That's when
That's when your that's when your life has started, yeah.
Aye.
And
That's
how long was that, mate? Cookie, you don't mind us asking?
Say that again, Bobby.
How long did you do? Many figures? Was it 15 you done? 15 to 16?
I done what? I done 16 years, 16 and a half years, and got out. I got a 12-year tariff off me trial judge. The Lord Chief Justice gave us 14 years. The Home Secretary, sorry, which was illegal, but I didn't contest it. I thought I'd just do me 14 years. And like I say, I done 2.5 years over tariff. Even though I went to Grendon, addressed all my offending behaviour, become a model prisoner, stopped thinking like a criminal, started trying to think more like a legit person. It was really, really hard. Especially when you're in prison and it's just criminal. You're surrounded by criminal values, you know, and you didn't want to think, you didn't want to talk about crime in that way anymore and stuff and that, you know. It can leave you really isolated. and they kept me in the prison system for 5 years like that. First it was free 4 years in a sea cat, and that was after I left Grendon. You know, it didn't do us any favours, and it delayed me getting out. I believe Grendon, but it was well worth it, you know. But you know, and it is hard to maintain it, but you get that emotional change. Like I found that's why I'm passionate about it, because I was so criminalised, right? And so, I mean, I wasn't violent and all that, me. I was just pure criminal. That was it. And to be able to not feel like that and to be able to get emotional resolve around all that was just a life-changing experience for me emotionally and that, and how I deal with things today. Even though I've got to fake it to make it at times. Sometimes I didn't feel like, you know, I didn't feel like it that day. You know, I've got stuff going on in my head. I might not be rationalising things as good in my head, but I have to keep an eye on my actions and how I'm portraying myself, how I'm coming across to people, what my conversations are, you know, especially because I didn't want to start talking about violence and fantasising about violence and stuff and that again, because look where that got us last time, you know. But it's very uncomfortable. As soon as a violent thought comes in my head these days, I get bad anxiety because of what I've done in the past. You know.
Well, that's very interesting, mate, because at the same time, that was like me. It was like a revolving door. Every screw in my local jails, mate, know me by my first term names, mate, and my dad, and my brother that passed away, and family members. I started committing crime at the age of 9, mate, and became hooked. And I think when I say hooked, I mean I was enjoying being with the big boys. I was enjoying stealing cars. It was just any excuse as well to just not go home to the environment. You love music, people fighting. My mum was on the drink and that, so any excuse to get myself to jail, just so I've got somewhere to get the head down, so there's no loud music, that I'm not seeing my mum getting battered and that size. So that started as well, mate. So I just kept committing crime, and it just got, like as you're saying, feel like stealing cars and it just goes up to jeweler shops. That was the biggest one, the one in the city centre. I'm not glamorising that, but that's it. I got so addicted to it. I remember getting out of prison, mate, times when I've done big stretches and that, Cookie, and I'm only up 2 days, mate, and I'm back and doing the whole 5-year recall and that, mate. And it's like, but as you're saying, mate, they don't let you get on. They had me banned for this whole area for a lifetime ban. My grand died, so we stayed down the road. So they banned me. I was like the first person in Scotland to be on this, not to be proud of, Asbo kid, and they had me in the front of the sun and that. And I got banned for this whole area. Now I had my mum staying here and whole family. So the only way I got to see my gran that when she was ill was hoods up, disguises, taking the risk, mate. 9 times out of 10, I knew I was going back up the road, but I just wanted to just give my gran a cuddle and had to get clean clothes. It was honestly, they were putting everything in my way for me not to move on. And it was difficult. My mum was getting the police harassment at the door. They were still at the door. They came last night because people on YouTube phoned and said that my electric bikes, my e-bikes stolen. So they checked the serial number and that. You probably saw the video today. My mate got his car took off him. But the point I'm making, and then my wee brother's house got done at 25 past this morning because somebody off of Glasgow's phoning up and saying he's still an active drug dealer. Is he? I don't know. No comment. I stay away from it, my dad and my brothers and that. People know that in my screen, mate. Cookie, that's all I need to know. I'm not only Shelby, my mum. My neighbours and that watch this kind of stuff, mate. And they're well-to-do people. I would say I'm low class. I was brought up in a council estate. Nothing fancy. The same as now, but I still know who I am, mate. I've not lost my identity. I'm going back to the system, mate. I was in care from 9-year-old, in and out. I actually got put on I don't know what this is. It's called a supervision order. And what that meant, Cookie, was at the age of 9, 10, I was always getting lifted. Social workers would get us back out after 6 hours police station. They'd be back in 5 hours later for a munch and just thinking somewhere to get the head down. I'd be back up committing more crime. So people kept saying they're going to keep all your charges to your 16. And that's exactly what they've done. It's called a supervision order. And there was about 80 odd conditions on that as well, mate. It was absolutely horrendous. So I got back in the scheme eventually after 7-8 years of jail constantly for that, because I appealed at the High Court. My lawyer did on some grounds because my gran was on her way out, but so we got back in eventually. But and that was just a few incidences, mate. Now, my message, I believe I'm passionate about, mate, and that's how you'll see me on my new channel. I've ditched 2,000 subs. I'm just going about, mate, and the schemes that are pretty rough and Dundee, and my message is spreading, mate. And I'm and I'm not wanting praise for that, but what I'm saying, I'm passionate. And as you're saying, Cookie, there's these people on YouTube, detective sergeants and that nowadays, and you're guilty of this and I'm guilty of that and whatever, right? They're not in your house, mate, in my house, and they don't see what I do on a day-to-day living, but I do show them me in my city, and I could walk anywhere I want in Dundee. Despite what I've done, I've been a rat in the past, but not like to the extent that, like, you know what I mean, not bad category stuff, but I've done all the sovereign operates, mate. Not glamorising, mate, like you, I was a thieving little cunt, mate. I used to tip my own place upside down, mate, shut on my own doorstep, fight me loads of notorious names in Dundee, and it just leads to a downward spiral, mate. And that's just that, mate.
Well, what I'm going to do, I'm going to jump in here, right, because I want to pull up on a couple of things you said, which I think are vitally important, the two of you. First, you, Cookie, where you were talking about how when you're not feeling good or feeling up to it, you're feeling depressed, you have to put a false face on. Now, I know that well from the background I came from, where that, you know, you're always told whether you're feeling terrible or not. You're there, you're an entertainer, you're supposed to look pretty and create fairy tales for people. So as a child, I learned you smiled and you were all bubbly because that's what you were going to, that's what your job was going to be. But I'll say something, right? Shakespeare has a quote for everything. The greatest psychologist and the greatest person to ever go to for quotes on any human emotional condition was Shakespeare. And I'll just read a little bit here for you from As You Like It. Here we go. All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances. Now it goes on to talk about how we are all literally actors on the world stage. And basically, what I get from it is he's saying that there's no genuine real us. There's no, and which again is another Buddhist thing. There's no general real you. You're a product of the situation you're in. You're a product of the times you're in. So basically, we all act a role. We don't have, that's what we do. And I think that's vitally important because a lot of the time, and it's not, depending on what's being spoken about, people go on about wearing the heart on the sleeve as if it's always a positive thing. It can be a very negative thing as well. It can be positive, it can be negative, because what it can also do is it can make someone sound self-centered, and, you know, I'm important and my emotions are important, and you feel like saying in the end, oh, for God's sake, just get on with life and stop analysing it and moaning it and saying how you're this, that, and the other. And you've got to be cruel in that way and forceful in that way, because guess what? The world doesn't care in general what anyone's suffering. You might get a few that do are empathetic, but they don't care. But I thought that was vitally important, what you were saying there. But also, Bobby, turning to your experiences as well and what you were saying there. Now, what comes from that is, as you're saying, you're trying to move on, but there's people out there that are determined that you won't move on. Now, that's what always puzzles me. Why someone would want, and all this reporting you to the police, you know, to try and get you to fall back into ways that you're trying to leave behind. And do you know the biggest punishment? Would you agree with this, with me, Cookie, on this? The biggest punishment you can give people is to be a success when they want you to be a failure. When you're a success, that's the biggest poke in the eye for them, and that's it. But people will always be trying to drag you down when you're trying to make good. And I've never worked that one out. So I just thought I'd point that out. But if one you want to talk about how now you actually how you go about mentally, because I think Bobby has said there are two different approaches to it, and yours is more that you're in a situation where you're having to struggle to get where you are, you're determined to get where you want to be. Where you're more in a situation, Cookie, correct me if I'm wrong, where it's more you're at the stage where the message is got there, you're settled in. There are people trying to drag you down. I've seen that. Trying to drag you down, but you're at the stage where it's just batter off that way.
What an orthodox partner, one. I don't care. I'm here for my brother, God, my mum, my family, and to meet people like yourself and Cookie. You've backed me for day one on. And people will see who the real ones are in the end and who, because it's my message, as I was saying, I had to lose my brother, Cookie, to realise that I had a life. Do you understand? It's like that took criminality and drugs, mate. It took me to lose my 26-year-old brother, mate, just December past. He left a 6-month-old baby, Lily, and Amber behind. And I had to see him in that bed, mate. And for me to go and whisper in his ear that I promise. And mate, it's the hardest thing ever, Cookie, because see, I'm talking about drugs now. But see, then, mate, it was like, see, the next day I woke up, it was like my brother's dead. And I was withdrawing, but it was like, it's either the devil kept saying, just go and like score drugs. And I'm just thinking, seeing him dead. And I'm me whispering the message, Cookie, even though he was brain dead. And I'm like, no, fight me this devil. See, every day, I fight me the devil. I got up, I pray, I've got my Bible, I've got the church tomorrow. And my mum, she doesn't bother whatever it is. Long what's for me is for me, Cookie, and it'll help me, and vice versa for you, mate. So yeah, so it's like the devil was jumping, the devil jumped back inside his mate, and he's like, sometime go and get drugs, and the seed starts growing, and I'm like, I just need to look up and speak to my wee brother, and see that picture, Cookie. That'll never leave my mind, mate, and that's what it took for me to go, wow. But I've still got driving charges to go for me on, believe it or not, on an e-scooter. I put them up because I was getting called a liar for that as well. So me being ego-driven, I go to church and that now, Cookie. I'm not way to argue with people being negative, mate. I've got the youth looking up to me. People could laugh or know they see it on my videos on a daily. I'm not fussed. I've got people behind me in my city, big people, whatever, that like me. But I've left that game, and everybody knows it. But they're still saying taking this and that. Well, who's ever going to say it? Who's going to come out and say it? Because I'm not one of the biggest players in the city. So if I'm calling the public, why is no one? Do you understand me? But I've got to just leave that negativity because my page is building on positive things, mate, like you, Cookie, mate, we're changing. And see the people that used to say to me, get a grip, bro, what are you up to? You're a lot better than that. Get back to the Bobby K you were, and we'll start partying and make money. And then you get back to normal, mate, and they're all happy and want selfies and that with you. But the minute something happens, shit hits a fan, sorry for my French, they're off again, mate. And then now they're back to people are on the bandwagon, and you probably get yourself maybe certain mates and it annoys you because we're battling millennium with addiction. It was institutionalised. I need to lock myself in small spaces, and my exes will confirm this. My room is like a proper jail. Look at my living room, mate. And my mum as well. Look at that, mate. There's not one thing out of place. A remote on the table because of prison, mate. Look, me as well. One else is my message just in. Yes, you will not see one thing out of place, and that this does not get used because I've got OCD to the max, mate. And that's prison. That's a fact, mate. So,
Well, I understand.
Sorry, have you ever been addicted to class A's and that, mate, if you don't mind us asking, or B's or C's?
I have been addicted to drugs, and I have been addicted. When I went into prison on my recall, I bought myself 20 subbies and I snorted every single one of them. And I had a really bad rattle off it, and that was the first and only rattle I had off drugs. My addiction before that was like just the alcohol and cannabis. You know, it was for me. My offending behaviour was fueled by me just wanting to be a criminal. When I was offending, I wasn't on drugs. You know, I did smoke cannabis, but that just hindered me crime. That, you know, and I never offended when I drank. It was just, I think it was the last 6 months last 8 months in my freedom before my index offence that I started drinking like every day. But no, but getting back to like the message that like I think comes to my mind all the time and what I feel like I'm passionate about is like the social consequences of the lifestyle that we chose when we were younger, right? And what sort of social environment was going on around with, right? That made it easy for us to make them choices.
Yeah, mate, totally get you.
It's like I had a lot of friends in I grew up in the crime estates, you know, and a lot of my pals had alcoholic parents, some drug dealer parents, you know, and they were kids without boundaries. So they wouldn't go, the only time they'd go home was to go to sleep, you know, and then wake up. As soon as they woke up, they were out the house, thieving, doing whatever they wanted to do. And they were street kids, you know.
Could have bought in there, mate. That's sort of the way I was, mate. I was brought up around my father in and out of prison. For back in them days, you'll probably know it was post offices in the early 90s because no CCTV, easy jobs at the time. Supposedly, I was born in the 90s, so I don't know. But he done his boss still and whatever. And then I had other uncles that were always in the jail. I had addiction. My father was on class A's. My mum was an alcoholic. My mum's been clean like 16 years off drink. My dad's went a wee bit off his head a wee bit mentally because he's lost his son in December. So I don't know. I think he's off heroin, but I don't know if he's on crack cocaine. I'm not sure. I hope not. He was, and he started hearing voices and stuff recently. It's no secret. I'm not way to lie to the public. People know me know. So I'm not way to lie and sugarcoat it. So I'm going through a bit of hard time. I made it no secret. I mean, the last week to 2 weeks, the first time Cookie I've ever been getting suicidal thoughts because I think it's
Bobby, let's just jump in there, right? Now you have to say this: if you're getting thoughts like that, you need to go for help with it. But best not talking about it on the air for the simple reason it can trigger people, and you've got to be very, very careful. But definitely, you need to get the right help for that because you're at that stage, and Cookie's been there. I've actually been there myself as well. Came very close to it, very, very close to it. And it usually happens at a point when, well, it can happen for various reasons. It's, as I used to say, it's the aspirin to pain that you can't shake off. And that's what I see it as. But the thing is, I always say, once it's that final act that no one wants to go to, because guess what? Once you go to that final act, there's no second. Let's put it this way: you can't undo it, and it's the agony you leave behind. But you're best going.
No, and I've got a good outcome up with that. What actually happened was, so I was feeling like that for the last couple of weeks, and I was like, what? I've been through so much in my life, as you guys probably know, right? But you only know the half, like, well, so I couldn't put my finger on the Cookie, and I'm like, people are saying maybe you've came off your subby too quick, maybe, and I'm like, maybe it is. But then I came to realisation that I was on these things called martazepine for the doctor that I met. They're first sleeping in that at night. Well, they helped me sleep. So I was like talking to my mum and saying I'm getting these thoughts and on the phone to counsellors and that's what it was. So say 2 days ago, I went back on them, got the best sleep of my life, slept. And last night I took one, mate, woke up today, and all these thoughts are gone. And I've never had that in my life. Them kind of thoughts. I was coming off my medication, mate. I cut myself off everything just too quick. Just one day.
Now, I just want to point something out here. Just let me point out here, because this is someone I think's been an ass in the chat, right? But they've actually said something very relevant here. Even though they're trying to be funny, but I think Howlerhead has said something very relevant here. Look, kids, this is what not to turn into, and it's exactly right. And what you two are doing is giving that message out. Don't turn into what we did, because this is the consequences. Guess what? You will feel lost. Yeah, perfect quote there.
I mean, getting back to what Bobby Mortrazepine, there is a really, I mean, people should be aware because the doctors do widely prescribe that to people like me, like
Yeah, mate.
social background, like the same as me. There's loads of people out now on that Mortrazepine,
Yeah,
and
mate.
it's a really bad rattle for at least 4 weeks, right? A bad depression and everything when you don't take your meds. And
Well, Cookie, this is why you bring this up, mate, because that's what I was about to get to. I was ready to say to Anne, I know it's a bit negative, but that's what I caught myself off all that and got told for.
well, that's what the
Yeah,
doctor
it was-
puts on
I
you.
never knew it was so bad, mate. I was waking up going, why, mate? And I'm going to myself, I've been feeling all right, like, and then it was in my trazepine all the way along, mate, and it was it was worse than some class A withdrawals, mate. I've told family members, my pals, that was horrible, but fair being back on them, and I'm back to normal, mate. But
You read the fine print, it'll tell you that them or the side effects, what you were feeling.
and it was
I think
on them
a lot of
famous
people
14-year-old,
a lot
right
of
through the
people
prison system.
Hey, well, Bobby, let Cookie
a
finish.
lot of people in prison are on them, and when they get messed about with our medications, when they move from wing to wing, particularly in the remand prisons, that this is what I believe it could be linked to why there's people self-harming in prison and stuff and that, because they're on these kind of medications, and when they don't get them, and the doctor suddenly takes that kind of medication off them, right? And because they've been caught on a drug test for opiates, and then suddenly they're depressed and suicidal for weeks. Sorry, Anne, depressed for weeks in the prison in the environment, and they do that regularly in local prisons.
You see, I want to talk about this medication, right? Now, definitely 100% people sometimes do need medication for depression, so not half they do. But also, this is another thing you've got to remember as well, which is forgotten. And I used to always say this to the people who were coming on, signing on bail and all this, when it was with the probation service. I used to say to them, be able to distinguish what is a natural reaction to a upsetting event and what is mental health. Because I hear people going on about mental health. I've got mental health and all this. And really, when you listen to them, you think, you haven't. You've got a natural reaction. You wouldn't be human if when something horrible happened in your life or you were struggling in your life, that you didn't feel depressed in some way. That's a natural reaction. But what you have to ideally do is learn to accept that life comes at you. You see, this is the problem as well with modern day life. That's it. It's human feelings. The thing that happens in modern life, see, years ago, and I've said this, people just had to get on with it. It was either if you felt depressed or whatever, and we know you hear these tales, I mean, look at that nurse. I always draw attention to this one. She was on the Titanic. She survived the Titanic. Then I think it was the Lusitania, wasn't it? Was torpedoed. She survived that. Then she was on another ship, and that's what people did then. They never what it was, because the concept of being mentally ill, or the concept of I've gone through a trauma, that means I need help, didn't exist back then. So people just literally got on with it. Now, what I'm not saying is that if someone goes through a traumatic experience, they should get on with it. But in the modern world now, people are convincing themselves that because their life isn't perfect and isn't wonderful and all roses and they're not a success, that means they're mentally ill. They're not. It's natural to get angry. It's natural to shout. It's natural to do things like that when you're upset. That's not mental health issues, but people do see it as that. But if people need drugs, which they do, or medical intervention, definitely go for it. Definitely go for it. That's what I would say. But there is, I think, a lot of the problems in life now, or society, modern society, we're living in a society where it's, I want, and I will have, and I want to be thought of as being brilliant and all this. I want to be people looking up to me as, isn't that person great? And it's like, that's what's causing the problems. It's not community anymore. There's no communities broken down. But I want to just point out one thing as well, Bobby, as well, which I find fascinating, which you said, about coming on. And someone else we know, Cookie, has said this. You know the way you said you want. Oh no, Cookie, you said, didn't you? You wanted to be a criminal, or you wanted to go into, and you did, didn't you, Bob? You were brought up like that. That was what you aspired to, or the surrounds told you that was what you aspired to. This absolutely fascinates me when people say that, and I say to myself, how can it be? What was the pull in it? Can you explain to people what? Because I think if you explain what was the pull, what was the appeal of it, then people who are younger will know to avoid that if they get those feelings.
I find it because it feels like I'm glorifying it when I talk about it in that way. Because being I don't know. I wanted to be the best car thief. I wanted to be the best burglar. You know, I wanted to be the best armed robber I could possibly be. You know, and it was that. I don't know. It gave us everybody around us wanted to be the same. You know, everybody, it was part of the social, to get social status in my community, that I'd be looked on. Oh, he's a good burglar. He's a good thief. Him, you know, and be a white boy and earn a living and earn a good living from it and be a successful criminal. You know, and that's what it was for me.
So what was it for you, Bobby? That
Well,
it was appeal.
yeah, this is God's honest truth. For me, I never had an option. So crime was my go-to. I never committed a bit of crime. I never had the best of this, the best of that. I had no option. I had to go out and commit crime, risk it in the jail before it was institutionalised, because my dad was always in the jail. It's like Cookie, I sort of thought it was cool a wee bit, but then I thought mug later on in life, because it's a mug's game, as Cookie will know now. But I had no option. I had to go out, make money, which any way possible. Sell my best mate would do it back then for drugs. Simple as that. And that's just been speaking facts. If you've got a drug problem, people, like, it's a cliche quote, you would sell your granny for a 20-pound bag of this and all that, right? But see, when you're withdrawing, there's no worse feeling, man. And listen, I've done all sorts of crime, but the bad stuff, you know what I mean? Like, we call it like chocolate feasts, like, yeah. I'm not going to say it on Anne's channel, but you just got my drift. But robbing old people, that's a no-no, or you can't walk about. But I had no choice. I had to go out sometimes and make my own money to put food in my own hands. My friends had to do the same, because we had parents that were on that and taking drugs and whatever back in them days. Well, I was one of them, so I had to go out and try and make as much money as I could. I hated crime at the start. I was scared. I was crying the first couple of times I got put in a cell. That's God's honest truth, like a wee girl. But then I was only 9-year-old, and then I started getting to 10. That's very young, 11. I started to enjoy it and laugh and think, yes, and get a buzz off that. Then I think I was moulded into what I became, because the system never gave us a chance. And always, like, people used to go on free bails and get bail again. I used to go and get bail imposed constantly. And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm not on any bails here. I never got bail. I started hating the system, hating the way they treated us. I saw them the way they treated my family. My uncle got a bit of leeway because he was a life addict and whatever. But there's rules for different kind of people in prison. And I just ended up falling in love with it. But at one time, as Cookie's saying, you did get the rush, the adrenaline rush, and you can't explain it. When Cookie, when you made a jeweler shop today.
The feeling of sitting on a big supermarket roof. You put a hole in the roof. You've got the place deed of alarms.
Yes.
Right? You've got the sensors squirted up. You jump in the middle of the night, and you've got the buzz of being in the place.
You've got the safe in that. Crazy,
and trying getting the tabs, getting the alcohol, getting away with it. And it's because you're not getting any consequences for behaving like that, right? That's what makes it more appealing, And back then, when I was committing crime, 9 times out of 10 you got away with it. It was very rare you got caught for burglaries and robberies and car chases, and you didn't have police helicopters, you didn't have police cameras all over the streets. You could get away with crime back then. you know. And
Well, mate, I'll be honest with you, I'm
yeah,
not going to say he was the best criminal because I've got 152 convictions now. But I tried my best, mate. I wasn't the best. I'm not going to sit and go. But when I look back, mate, see now, Cookie, if I walked past the security van and it was open me a big tin of money in it, mate, a couple of years ago, I would have grabbed it and took the 10 years for it. See now, mate, as you're saying, I get anxious, anxiety, and I'm like, whoa, don't even look, mate, now. Terrifying.
Because we're aware of the consequences. It's because I'm aware of the consequences of my behaviour now, you see.
Yeah.
That's it.
Emotionally,
Myself,
I'm
mate.
emotionally identified with it. And I didn't like it. I didn't like the person I was turning into. You know,
That's
I
it.
didn't want to be a horrible man all my life. And that's what it boils down to.
And
You
the
know?
thing is, I want to point out here, and it's for people who have children as well. And this is where I get really passionate and think, no. Right. When people have children and they've got a serious criminal record, right? I tell you now, say that child, you want the best for that child. And that child suddenly decides it wants to work in let's say the police, wants to work for the Home Office, good jobs if you can get them. Tell you now, the chances are they'll never get that job. Because the minute they look at the parents and they see the parents, because they do background checks on even people your cousins and everyone, you're stopping your child advancing in life. And I can't see it more horrendous for a parent than saying, well, wait a minute, because you acted in that way, guess what? You stopped your child get the dream job that they want. And it's just absolutely, people need to take that into account.
Yes, and I call it, that's because people like us and that were part of an underclass environment that the government will not, they'll only see a lower class. There is lower class, but then there's this underclass part of society that people like me are from, that grow up with criminals, where, I mean, to this day and age, to turn down in your head and say, right, I'm going to bring my child up to be a criminal.
Yeah, which is odd to me.
Back in the 70s, it was much easier to make that decision because of these crime estates and the amount of crime that was going on and the amount of people who were criminalised. All your neighbours were criminalised, you see. Nobody ever phoned the police on each other. If you phoned the police on anybody, you got your windows smashed and you had to move out the area. And then you were isolated.
In this city now, sorry, but it's just a couple of brothers when they were active drug dealers. They're not now. Why are you selling drugs? The two brothers that I'm talking about don't touch any. And their answer was because they thought it was cool watching dad making all that money growing up. I also said to a couple of the youth I'm working with, mate, why is on them elf bars and why is smoking weed? Not in front of me, but in the went, because the hardest boy in the school smokes it. And I went, what have you got in your man bag, wee man? And he went, just a wee bit of weed. And I went, why? And he went, because everybody in school's doing it. Now, I got told last week from a friend that his daughter was walking through the playground at St. Paul's, a high school in Dundee, Cookie and they were sitting smoking weed. These pupils walking about, and not one teacher came out because it's meant to be getting done on a daily basis, and they're just going like that to it now. So what I was thinking about doing was going down to that school, mate, because I know a lot of the youth, mate, and see what's going on my electric bike and having a look to see if I do see them. I'm not a grass smoking weed, but if that's a problem, mate, which it is, and we need to get something done. Well, I'll need to go to the school and have a word with them, mate, and say, look, I want.
Oh, what's happening?
Well, I understand what you're saying there, Bobby, but it's like these sort of problems have always existed in the schools that people like us go to, right?
Well, I just want to put. Can I just jump in?
No, but
I just want to. Well, wait a minute, Bobby. Just let's jump in here because this person said something interesting. Flossy Jock. Poverty breeds crime. It's easier than being an economic slave for the undereducated, which turn are mostly poor people. Now, partly right, I'm going to argue with the rest of it. Poverty can breed crime, and also there's poor people who don't turn to crime. Undereducated, there's no reason for anyone in this country to be undereducated. It's just that education isn't held as a priority by some stratifications of society, whether they be poor or not. You know, where that, as I say, well, if you can't be bothered with education, and there's no reason, I'm telling you, there's no reason to be uneducated in this country.
Right.
Right? All that you need to do is say to some African child who's desperate to be educated in a poor village, or some child that's in a country where, let's say, they have to pay a premium to be educated. I know we do here, but that's later on. Say, well, let them take your place, because they'll walk on hot coals to get the education that you're not taking up. The thing is, it's one of those things, when it's there, people get used to and take it for granted. Poverty can breed crime, you're right. And of course, the laws, I won't go into it, the laws are source of stat that if you are poor and you commit a crime, it's usually going to be for monetary gain. The law's packed up that that's going to be, you've got more chance of being a criminal than, let's say, a politician that's putting their hands in the till. You know, that's the way it says.
That's it, because if you think, you know, and if you grow up like you're saying, and you've got like a mum and dad that's like using, you are not going to get brought up so well like the neighbour next door that's maybe got the mum with the 2 jobs, the 2 Range Rovers and that. You're going to need to miss meals on days. I've went through it. You get a meal one day, 2 days later, you might get, when my mum was on the drink and things were going on, you might get 2 meals a week. You might be out for 5 days in cells and get fed in police cells, get fed at your pals of yours. That's the way it was back in my day. So I totally agree with
Well,
Anyway, Cookie, what were you going to say anyway? You were saying something, weren't you? Just as I cut you off.
Oh, right. Well, back when I was at school, and it seems like there's been a trend with the schools or what goes on with the drug use in the schools. Because back when I was at school, there was always a lot of, there was glow sniffing going on. You know, a lot of glow sniffing. There was, I remember we used to sit and sniff Tipex thinners on my sleeves in the classroom. You know, we always smoked at school. And, them's the sort of things that seem to go on in school and never really been dealt with. You know, and then now they're smoking spliffs at school. You know, or they're snorting, having lines in school in the toilets.
I know,
I'd love to go in and test the toilets, what they do in them pubs. Any lines?
Yeah. Just because when I went to school, mate, there was weed. My boys smoked weed and that, and you got, believe it or not, you got people taking heroin. The odd couple, I won't name them, but in school there was about 3 to 5 that later on then in life when we ended up in the jail and that they went, do you remember that time in Warside toilets, blah, blah, and it was on. I went, what? So yeah, mate, there was people on heroin and going to offside and that when I was there, but before we got kicked out and I was at offside schools and that. So, and at offside schools, mate, I saw a lot of people take cocaine in the toilets and I was one of them. So that was
glue sniffing, gas sniffing, and Tipex sniffing, and it went back in my day. That's the drug we had to do, you know.
Yeah,
Evo stick and stuff like that. We even used to. I mean, back then, this is how socially things were different. You could put a kid from the shop, from school. I used to go from school and we dinner break, go to the shop and buy myself a single tab.
Wow.
My God, it's a different world now, isn't it? Because I remember the worst thing anyone could do in school when I was going to school was because in the bike shed smoking. That was it. Smoking a cigarette. What? Oh, that was it. You were going to get absolutely. We're going to tell your parents, and you'd be terrified. You'd be absolutely terrified. But yeah, it's a different world. But the thing is now, how do you get that message out there? And you're saying that you want to go into schools, Bobby, and you want to do work in prisons, don't you, Cookie, eventually? How do you actually get to the position? When do you think it's the right time to get in there and start giving this message out?
I think the schools are important, and I think psychology should be brought into the schools to make people more psychologically aware these days of the pitfalls so they can recognise them better as well, you know. So I think it's schools and stuff and that should be, it should be happening. But, you know, like I said, my generation and the generation before me were sat rotting in jails because of their social backgrounds. I think they need help as well, you know, morally. So
Yeah.
that's what I feel. And prevention is much better, I would say, than actually having to deal. Look at all them dangerous criminals we have in our prisons, and they really are dangerous, a lot of them. Phew. Especially in the Cat A prisons, Whitemore, Franklin, Full Sutton, all them places, really bad, dangerous people.
So what do you think, Bobby? How do you get into those schools, and what point do you go into those schools? What stage would you have to be at to be able to do that or feel confident?
Well, I feel confident now. I think it should have been done, if not years, it's a couple of years back, a lot of years back when I was at school. But firstly, I would start probably primary six, primary seven, and I would bring new stuff into the system of education, like teaching them about prisons or consequences, how
Yeah.
to make their own money and all that. And how do I get my message out there? Well, my message is floating, so I just go about on a daily basis. I speak to as many youth that shout my name and chant my name, and I go, listen, I give them give them my time, and I get my message right into their head time and time and time again. And then I meet them, I test them and go, what have you got to do, wee man? Stop climbing on the school roofs, because that's what we done, and it'll lead to, believe it or not, the jail, and asked about jail stories. So I believe that and think that we should be on these streets together, YouTube community, changing the streets, the generation, my kids, your kids. Maybe it's cliche, but it's not when I've got a lot of parents stopping me as I was saying it, and they're asking me for help. Now, listen, I'm only 32 young man. I'm getting 50 odd year olds in that cookie asking me to help them with their daughters and that. People are not for this area. And I'm like, whoa. So I'm trying my best to help them. And the church are helping me set up stuff. My local complex, I could get took into my local school as soon as I go back, everyone. But I just need to do a wee bit more work on myself, because I'm not want to be critical because I'm going to the church and that just now and whatever, and I'm on the programme. So I just need a wee bit more time for myself, even though I'm doing good on a daily basis, I believe, because I believe that what I'm doing at Cookie's doing, I don't see people doing what we're doing. And you get the odd death threats and whatever, but I've got to deal with it, so's Cookie. And I'm willing to, because mind you, it was me that wrecked this place. I was part of the group that wrecked this place. So I've got to know that I'm sorted in that. I think I've got to give back to this area for putting up with all that crap for all them years for me. Dundee as well, but mainly my heart's here in this big place and a few other areas. But because you can't be, as Cookie saying, there's only one of him and one of me, so we could only get to so many people. And as I was saying, if I could change a couple of people's, I get people saying, sit and watch your video with my son and that. And I get a lot of them on pictures and that reason. They're only 12, 13, and that makes me a day, because it puts a smile on my face. Because years ago, you'll know, when you're wanted for stuff and spoke about, was always, he's a fever and little this, he's that. But see, now it's always great for me now. It's like, he's doing this and he's helping this, and it makes me feel great, mate, inside there, mate. Makes me feel bang on, mate.
I'll answer in a minute, Flossie. But one thing that I always say, and I've always said from the start, one of the best things that children can see in schools, if it's going to put them off, I'd say inspire them not to. You're inspiring them. You're not putting them off. You're inspiring them. Is when they see physical consequences. And that's why I used to always, with the probation say, I said, why can't we get someone, I said, who's going through the withdrawals, I said, take them into a school. I said, let them see the sweat, the shake and the cramps. I said, let them see. I said, they'll be willing to do it, because a lot of drug users wanted to, but they wouldn't do it. And I said, also, everyone's vain now. I said, take in photographs of heroin addicts who are gaunt, the teeth falling out, the ash, and after, and say, here we are, this is what happens when they came off it. And that's what they need to see it. And that's why I say people like Marvin Herbers who people think I can't stand. No, it's not that I can't stand him. I just criticize him now and again. But you've just got to look at his face and him say, look at this. Do you want this? Is this what you want? That's the message you need. But Flossie, just to answer your question, hungry kids in classrooms can't learn as efficiently. Believe me, I know. With no support at home, it's not as easy as people think. That's correct. That's very correct. But what we were talking about before was that it was the uneducated. There's a lot out there of children who aren't inspired, and the parents don't hold up education as a supreme value, who aren't hungry, who aren't on the breadline. But you're right in saying that if a child has got a hungry stomach, and if a child isn't getting any support at home, of course that child is going to struggle. There's no doubt about that 100%. But yet, so I think that's the essential way to go about things, is to let them see. And there was one, wasn't it? Do you remember ages ago? Danny Christie was literally in tears because he relapsed and he was panicking and he was really crying out for help. That's what they need. A big, strong man, a big, strong bare knuckle fighter, actually crying and distraught because he can't get out of it. That's what children need to see. And I'm all for education. A part of the curriculum should be talking about things like this. And sadly, they don't. But it's vital that they talk about drugs. It's vital that they talk about crime. It's vital, vital, vital. And of course, you've got to get the parents on board. And that's the real task. Getting
the consequences of our kids not being aware of what the dangers that they face today. I mean, because there's so much more they've got to cope with, kids these days. So much more pressures. As the generations go on, they just get more heaped on top of them.
Yeah.
You know?
Cookie, I think that's where all this Instagram and all these selfies you see, mate, all these young girls and boys with their lips all done, they're 15-year-old, and they've got in the background a selfie. You see the Chanel handbag just sitting there, the Louis Vuitton bag or whatever, the purse, and it's all set up, mate, and it's all fake, and they're living in this fake bubble, as you know, and they need a reality check, mate, because you see some of these pictures.
Their life's like a big movie, and their ego is running it. Their ego is running that show, and when it comes crashing down, you've got all these horrible, difficult feelings that are hard to deal with. You know, your drug use starts to increase, your behaviour starts to change. You know, that's the way a lot of people get into things now. Their pressures that they have got these days, because it's not so much that the kids are getting criminalised on the streets anymore, but they are, but not to where it was when I was a kid. Maybe it's when you were a kid as well. But the social media pressures, I mean, it's crazy for the kids these days, man.
Oh, it's horrific.
Horrific. And they're being manipulated sexually, and they're being sexualized at a younger age, and I mean, it's all our mainstream TV.
That's happening in my city now. So-called old gangsters, won't say names, in their 60s, they're going about with a wee 17-year-old blonde thing with fake boobs and that because they're selling a bit of rock, and they're all on the rock in my city. It's terrible. See, if you came up to Dundee, not every Dundonian, most, they're all going about like look like a crack pipe with a set of legs and a set of legs and arms. That's how bad they look. Nearly every single person on these streets, mate, are looking bad to the crack cocaine. And it's took a right grip of this city, mate. There's kids on it. It's never been so bad, this city. The one drug Cookie and I got away in December, but it's been here about 2 years. And it's got a proper grip of people with reputations that are like selling their self-men to other men, people and that. It's crazy, mate. It's unbelievable. I'm glad I'm out that circle.
Can I ask a question here? Right now, I've never taken drugs. I tried when I was younger, popped twice and didn't like it because it just made me feel sick and weird. So I've never ever touched drugs. But I remember when I was at the probation. Now this would have been the early, well, it would have been 1999, 2000s, around that area. And I remember Ice started coming into the country about that time. Starts being able to get no ice yet, no ice. It's ice cocaine came into the country, and they used to say. And I remember hardened drug users used to say, "I wouldn't use that stuff if I was desperate," because they said it turns you totally paranoid and destroys your brain. They said you end up going totally paranoid.
Sorry to interrupt. Was that called iceberg by any chance? It was crystal in a packet. Like,
I know it was ice, and they were all saying they wouldn't touch it. Now it looks like people are
it's banned
using
now.
it.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
is it
banned
banned?
now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
that
the
was banned in
States, that's
Dundee as
Muslim.
well. That was banned in here. That was banned up here.
Yeah, I heard that actually sent people really.
Yeah, there's people like that now. A guy called Pedro, he was well respected. He goes about bins with just collecting rubbish, and he's thinking that he's doing the environment good by cleaning. But it's a shame to see people that were in the prison system, well reputations, going about bins on a certain screaming Dundee people all know. But he's a great guy, and he's mentally lost it. And that was with injecting a thing called iceberg. It was like crystallized down what you're on about, but they were selling it in a shop in the house.
Yeah.
People all know, but now it's banned.
Oh, they were all onto
Oh,
that.
crazy stuff people were doing on that. You're right, and terrible.
But what I want to draw attention to as well, this is an interesting thing, is the background, in other words, the environment you're living in. Because I've always said this, and I used to have this again with police officers, because some of them, not all of them, but some of them could be very, looking down the noses, I never did that. I never did this. And I used to say, there, but for the grace of God, go I. And I've always believed that if you're born in that situation, I mean, look, let's put it this way, right? If you'd been raised the way where I was, the way I was raised with a background of Shakespeare, ballet, opera, and all this, chances are that's the road you would have gone down because that was your normal. Where if I'd been transported to your life, I would have ended up, and this is what people have got to understand. I always say environment is, is it nature or nature? I'd say the vast majority of the time, it's nature, how you're brought up, how the environment you're in. You can get some people, and I've said this before, that can come from privileged backgrounds and they get into drugs and all this. Told you, didn't I, Cooker, the other day about Gelsey Kirkland, the ballerina, top ballerina, American Ballet Theatre. Who would have thought that a top ballerina in such an exclusive art form would have actually been a cocaine addict? And she wrote a book which caused, if anyone gets to see, it's called Dancing on My Grave. And she talks about she had 7 brain seizures. This is a woman who admits, of course, I remember it happening because I was a young dancer at the time and we were all like gobsmacked. She said, when you see me on that stage, said doing those really difficult roles, she said, I was high. She said I was doing a line before class, a line after class, and a line before I walked on the stage. So it can happen in any class. But I'd say to you, when you're in that, say that I'm going to set up a scenario and see how you think this will be. First you, Cookie, then Bobby, you answer this. You have a child, right? And you can see that child is in an area where you're going to find it highly probable that they're going to end up either falling into crime or falling into drugs. What you do?
I would make sure that my parents that is fully aware that he has or she has options, right? I'd make sure my parent could read for sure, that and I'd make sure that my parent knew that there was options in life to get out of this and try and guide me Ben in that direction.
And what would you do, Bobby, if you saw that happening?
I would take it back and strip it back to the old school times on. I don't think he would have a computer. I think he would be addicted to football, which was my first passion. Could have went all the way. But things happened. And I would also spend 95% of my time with him, educating him, either boxing, some kind of sport. I would discipline outside school. Classrooms aren't just in four walls. You could take them up like to open spaces. There's loads of things you could do, educational wise. Teach them how to camp, teach them how to live out in the wild, take them up to the city and teach them how to hunt a rabbit and cook for themselves and stuff like that. I would do everything, and I would just keep them away from the city schemes and put them into like classes, after school classes. If it was a girl, gymnastics, netball, basketball. A wee boy, it would be football, or it would be with me. I would be doing the things that I think my father should have done, and I would have been somebody buying my own house. I bought a house at that, not bragging. It was great at football. Everybody will tell you that they went all the way, but I just didn't have a father at training with us. I would go on my own. I would go to games on my own. I would get lifts from my pals, mums and dads, because I was always like, my mum and that were always like on the drink and that, so it's hard. And used to like score 5-6 goals a game back then. You used to win 17-5 and score loads of goals, and you've not got your family watching to feel the pride with you. It's just, you know what I mean, quickly, mate. And you know, if you got that extra, like every training session, your mum and dad there. So that's what I would do with my kid. I would make sure I was every step of the way on his journey. I would not miss one thing, mate. And I mean that.
You know what I'd do? And this would be my natural response. Now, I don't have children, but I know it would be my natural response. It would just, because one of my family members actually did this. I'd just say, right, here we are, pack your bags, we're leaving. And I'd be right out the area with the child. I'd be saying, I'm getting out now. Come on, we're going somewhere else. And I remember one of my, not for reasons I approve of, he did it, but he got his whole family. He was in London, not in a particularly bad part of London, but he was in London, and he didn't like all the, gay pride marches because they were very sexualized in parts, and said, I'm not having this. But and he did, oh God, education. This is it. These were people who came from poor backgrounds as well. My Irish side of the family, they weren't rich, wealthy people. But they always held education as everything, as being everything, and top of the list of everything. Now, he got his kids and said, right, that's it, we're going back to Ireland. And he went back over to Ireland. He said, I'm not having this. Now, of course, to me, he did it because he thought these LGBTQI people were absolutely corrupting his children. But that's what he did. He felt the need. And he gave up quite a lot himself because he had a good job there, very well paid job. But talking about backgrounds, that and how the approach of the parents is vital. Now, I say my mum's family were a fishing family from a fishing village in Ireland. They weren't rich people, but I think the influence was her grandmother, my great grandmother, and she, because my mother's mother died when she was 2 in childbirth, she came back from India because she was, that was the Empire days, and she was a lady as such, not a title lady, but a lady living in India. So she came back to take care of them. And I remember my mummy used to always say that was the change. Everything was education. Everything was Shakespeare, because of course she came from a high society Dublin family. And that's what caused the change. So why I'm pointing this out is not boosting. Oh, my mama's family came from came from a social family, upper class family in Dublin. No, why I'm pointing it out is because that one influence of positivity actually changed the course of all the lives, and it carried on into their nieces and nephews' lives. My great-grandmother's great children forward, that one positive influence that said, here we are, you're going to learn about Shakespeare, you're going to learn about opera. The ballet side of my family came from my papa. It wasn't, they found ballet something boring and, pointless to do. But why I'm mentioning that is because if you become that positive influence, which you're both talking about, you become that one influence in that family that changes it for future generations, says, guess what? this is what you need, education. Don't just take them to see football. Just don't take them to see sports. Say, here we are, even though you're bored to hell of it, say, right now we're going to go to the theatre. Young children, of course, you take to something simple. But then go to see a ballet, go to see an opera, introduce them to the arts, and you can see a flourishing happening. The whole world open up to them. And that's it. So I think, like my great-grandmother, you become that one influence that changes the whole course of your future generations, and they value education above everything else. So what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I believe that. Like, I mean, my great grandparents on my dad's side were miners, and on my ma's side, my great grandparents were travellers. Me great nana was a fortune teller, and she would sit in them that wooden carts, and people gone in and she'd tell a fortune. And that she had 13 kids, and then lay in bed for 20 years bringing them up. She was a good woman. But after she brought them up, she lay in bed for 20 years, sorry.
It's good to say, she lay in bed, bring them up.
It exhausted her. So but I suppose, like, you know, my grandparents affect it is true. It is true that the choices that we make, you know, do affect what family generations to come.
Yeah, it affects everything. That one woman, by doing that, and my mama used to say this, she said, I would have ended up, she said, in those days, because her mama was into stereotypical for those days Irish Catholic woman, the saints and all this, and praying to the saints, and that's all that mattered. And she was destined to go into service for a Protestant family in a big house, you know, because that's what Catholic girls did on her level, and that's how she earned her money. But her grandmother said, no grandchild of mine, she said, is going into service for a Protestant, Catholic, or anyone else. And that's what caused the change. So what do you think of that, Bobby? The fact that one person is a catalyst to change the future generations of that family?
Well, I know my gran can't do that now, obviously, because she's passed away. But speaking about grandmothers, I know I'm going off the subject a wee bit here, but my grandmother actually saved my life, I believe. And what I mean by that is I could have been adopted or fostered or whatever, but she kept me in the family. And as I've told John years later, my mum obviously got herself clean and whatever. But the way my gran used to look at things, when like the police used to raid her house and she was near her way out and that, my gran used to give me a telling off, and that was enough to scare me, believe it or not. But then I still go and do it. So I wish I could, I know I'm jumping off, but I wish I could bring my gran back. I think my gran was the only person that could do that and sort future generations out of my family and stuff like that on this side.
I'm going to jump in here. I'm going to jump in, Bobby. No, she isn't. You can. That's the whole point. You can be that catalyst for change. Cookie can be that catalyst for change. That's it. Nieces and nephews, if you haven't got children yourself, nieces, nephews, whatever, you can be that catalyst that says, here we are. Not overtly, you know, like, oh, I'm going to educate you. But you say, here we are. Like one of my aunts used to. She was in a similar sense, and she was married into the family, but she wasn't educated or anything. And I've said this before. She got her daughters and her children, she got her grandchildren. She used to say, if I don't know it, I'm going to take you somewhere that does. And that would be the library. And she took them, like I was saying, to the theatres and all this. She said, you're going to see a life outside this. She said, you're going to have a chance. They all became successful. So you become that catalyst so that in the next century, someone's sitting on a show. I don't know if they'll have YouTube then, but someone's sitting on the show saying, guess what? Because of my Uncle Bobby, or because my granduncle Bobby, or my grandfather Cookie, many years ago, because they made that change, everything changed in the family. And the same.
Well, and then know you were saying there, pal. Sorry, I sort of got this question. I had a thing a wee bit wrong there. Yeah, well, that is me, as I was saying, for my brother who passed away. He's left Carson behind 6 months old at the time. So I'm going, that's why I changed as well, because I whispered into his ear and says, your kids will be took after, looked after, and loved, and they will know who their dad was. They forgot now, Lily and Amber. But Carson only met his dad a few times. He was an addict still before he passed away. He was only 26, as it says. But I'm going to be that person. So in years to come, they're going to grow old, and I'm going to educate them about my brother, their great dad, who put me in this position I'm in now. Because I would never have beat my addiction. I've been took hostage, my Achilles cut, blood squirting to parts of my body because of that dirty disease, and the system, and ripping big gangsters off because you're vulnerable and you're withdrawing. Give me them couple of kilos. You get locked in containers for 4 weeks, fed bread and water. I've been through it all. It ain't nice. So the message I'm trying to get out there, and to my nieces and nephews, and that my brother left, is look, I've got the scars there on my face and everywhere. You want to end up looking like this, or do you want to go to university and become a solicitor? Whatever. If you want to be a PF, go a judge, go and do that, but be a fair one, and become the best at what you want to be.
Brilliant.
And that's what I'm going to drill. I'm going to make them something, but they've also got to make themselves something. I can't just say it.
Oh, yeah.
They've got to do it, and if you know what I mean.
But it does change people. And what you're doing also, you say as well, if I don't know that, guess what? Well, it's easy now. You don't have to go to the library. Let's just pop on the computer and Google that. If they want to know something, they'll be educated in it. But again, it's been an absolutely fascinating talk. And I'm going to return, ask you both to come on at a future date, because I think it's fascinating and you can never get it done in one show, can you? And what's your dog's name, Cookie?
Ruby.
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 Best friend you'll ever have. Best friend you'll ever. Yeah. So anyway, I want to thank you, Bobby, for coming on, and I want to thank you, Cookie, and I want to thank people in the chat who have come on. I will be, asking you on again to talk about this more, because I think it's vital. But it's in there. You'll see in the description the links to join Cookie's channel and Bobby's channel, and Bobby's also on Instagram as well. So thank you all, and goodbye. And
nice meeting you, mate. Nice meeting you, buddy. It's been a great chat. I'll speak to you behind the scenes, mate. We'll have a good talk on that, mate.
Definitely.